I'm applying an oak water stain, which is just a weak wash, it's like an orange colour, and then I'll put an oil stain on after this, which will be golden oak, which is just a strongish yellow colour, and hopefully that'll be it. I've not tested the colours, but I'm quite familiar with these, so I'm hoping it'll work. One of the things I used to do occasionally was stain the panels before they went in, because if they shrink a bit you'll get a line, but because I'm using an oil stain afterwards it tends to search a bit better and it'll creep underneath, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Because it's for me, if it does do anything like that, I'll just touch it up afterwards with a brush. This is the oil stain, which I've thinned down quite a bit. It's still quite strong. It will dry a bit lighter. The stain's dried now on the outside. It's always a bit nerve-wracking when you're staining something this big, because if it goes wrong it's a big problem. So on the back the stain's bled through a little bit, it's oil stain because it's quite searching. So I've given it a bit of a sanding and vacked it off, and now I'll just give it a coat of a dark water stain. This is just button polish. So there's the cupboard so far with a couple of coats of button polish, looking worryingly yellow at the moment. They never look good at this stage, but that's a bit concerning, but I think it'd be okay. Just adding a little bit of what's called Bismarck brown, unfortunate name, but it's just a red dye, quite a traditional one that they use. So I've mixed this with a bit of mess. So I'm going to ebonise these knobs. I don't want them jet black, I want them really like a very dark brown, fairly warm blackish brown. So I've mixed up this aniline dye in some meths, and I've added some button polish, so it's quite a red colour. And I'm just going to add a load of vegetable black. I'm not going to try and get it in one hit, it'll sort of darken slowly with each coat. I'll put a bit of brown in there as well. just put this on as a first coat and start building up. So it doesn't matter how bad this one is, just gives an idea of the direction I'm going. It's actually not bad. I think I'll add a bit more black on the after a few coats of this. See what it looks like, make a decision then. So the second coat is blocking it out quite nicely. I'll still build up a few more layers because I'll cut this back with wire wool and then decide how much darker I want them. While I've got this polish out, I'm just going to paint around the fretwork. Because I can't stain it because some of the French polish has dribbled through, and you'll end up with patches where it's not taking the stain. Just have to make sure it doesn't bleed through to the front face. It's bled through a little bit, but nothing to worry about. Before I go any further with the polishing, I'm going to distress it a little bit with this thing. It's just something I turned up, covered it in glue and dipped it in some stones. You can use, well, that's a bit of concrete, which is great because it's got odd shapes in it, but it does leave grit in the wood itself, which I don't particularly like. So I tend to use this. I'm not going to overdo it, but I just need to lightly sort of distress it where it would naturally get wear, so sort of around where the tops of the drawers are, so around there where people put things in and they get bashed around that area. So I'm just going to roll this. It's quite tough oak, so you can press quite hard without it really doing anything. Just starts to give it a little bit of a gnarled finish. Obviously the higher up you go, the less likely it's going to get damaged, so you don't really want to touch the cornice at all. I'm not really going to do anything to the sides either, it's just basically the front where it gets the use. The feet tend to get more of a hammering than anything else because they get kicked a lot, so you can really go to town on that bit. The little ball that I turned on the end is useful because you can just roll it in your hand without dropping it. Any of it that feels a little bit scratchy, just go over it with a bit of fine sandpaper. This is just that 320 that I went over the whole thing with. Just so it doesn't snag on your fingers. There's a couple of ways I fake the patina on things. One is mixing pigments with French polish, and the other way is using watercolour paint, which is a little bit more controllable. You can reverse it if you don't like it easier. I've just got some rosewood water stain. Just mix in some of this watercolour paint. That's burnt umber. And a bit of lamp black. And all you do is brush it on. And straight away the colour doesn't look quite as horrendous as it did before. You just scrub it in and just keep dabbing it off, but leaving it where you want it a bit darker. You don't remove so much. So you can see it's made quite a difference. Where the handle goes and the hinges, I've just added more paint and built it up a little bit more to get it a little bit darker. Once it's dry, I'll go over it with wire wool. If I'm happy, I'll seal it with a thin coat of button polish. Once the paint's dry, you mustn't get any moisture on it at all. Even if your hands are a bit sweaty, you'll leave fingerprints in it. So the next thing to do is wire wool it down with 4-0 wire wool. You can see that it's brought out the bits where I've distressed it a little bit more. So the next thing I'll do, I'll seal it with button polish. You can just wax over the top, but I'd sooner put button polish on. I'll thin it down quite a bit first, put a couple of coats on, and then I can cut it back with wire wool and then see if I need to touch anything up. I can do any more alterations after that. I've added a little bit of red aniline dye to this polish and thinned it down quite a bit. I discovered this method of aging things up with watercolour paint by accident, because I'd polished something and then I was staining the backboard, and some of the stain actually went onto the side, onto the polished bit, and I didn't notice it, and when I waxed it, it wouldn't come off. So I thought I'll use this to my advantage. So I originally used just Van Dyke Brown watercolour stain to do this, and then I thought, well, there's lots of glues and things in watercolour paint. If I could get that and put it in the stain, it might make it work better. And I thought, well, why don't I just buy watercolour paint? So I bought some and I tried it and it worked. So that's what I've used quite a lot over the years. I mean, I found this out about 20 years ago, and I've had stuff that I've done that long ago and it's still fine, nothing's happened, it hasn't bubbled up the polish that I put on top or anything. So it's tried and tested, and it seems to work very well. The colour's quite nice, but really for Welsh furniture, it's usually a lot redder. I might try and make something later on and try and get that red colour.